Hi, I'm Samantha Wang, a product manager of Telegraph and data ingestion at InfluxData. I work really closely with the engineering teams and InfluxDB community in terms of data collection. So in this session, I'm going to go over various methods of ingesting data into InfluxDB, and I'll go over some of our newest products and features and what's to come. I'm going to review a few methods of collecting data into InfluxDB, including native data collection, client libraries, and then finally discussing anything and everything that has to do with Telegraph. As you heard in Brian and Barbara's talks, they went over some of these data collection options for InfluxDB. I'll focus on the highlighted methods, where we'll also have demos from our engineers on how to use these products to write data into InfluxDB. Remember, these methods aren't just ways to get your data from one place to another. It contains a range of features for transforming and filtering your data at the edge before it hits your database. Our data collectors give you these tools to do the processing at the edge because who wants unnecessary stuff in their database? You can always save money on storage costs as well. First, let's discuss our newest data ingestion method, native data collection. Native data collection is the ability to directly ingest data from popular data sources. This collector improves a user's time to awesome by not requiring any code to be written or having to download any external software. Native data collection provides an end-to-end cloud solution for users to easily and quickly get data into their platform. Native MQTT is the first version of this and has been released in InfluxDB Cloud. With native MQTT, you can subscribe directly to the topics being published. If your MQTT data is already sitting in a public MQTT broker and you want to get it into InfluxDB Cloud, native MQTT will help you do so quickly without having to write any exhaustive Python scripts. Your native MQTT data collection is all configured in the InfluxDB Cloud UI, as opposed to the Telegraph agent, where your data flows from your IoT devices to your MQTT broker to Telegraph and then to InfluxDB Cloud. Native MQTT removes that middle software portion for your data to go directly from your brokers to the cloud for a completely managed and serverless solution. If you don't want to host or manage any physical virtual machines to collect your IoT data, native MQTT will be the perfect solution for you. As for getting this set up, Gene will be demoing this feature in the UI, but it only requires 3 steps to be done. First, configure your MQTT broker. This includes your broker URL and any authentication. Next, configure your MQTT topic and the InfluxDB bucket that you're going to be writing your data to. And lastly, define your parsing rules. This will often be the hardest step, especially if you're reading in complex JSON and need to properly parse out your metrics. Native data collection is a product users have been asking us for quite some time. If you haven't used it yet, go into InfluxDB Cloud and try it out, and let us know what you build. Now let's quickly review what's going on with InfluxDB client libraries. Maya will go into client libraries a little more in depth and demonstrate how you can write data and query data using them. The client libraries are language-specific packages that integrate with the InfluxDB v2 API and provide everything you need to help you quickly interface with this API. All of these libraries are open source and licensed under the MIT license. You can use our client library to integrate any of them into existing applications or build something completely new. Our overall goal in the last few months with the client libraries is to really meet the developers where they are. We want to improve the developer's experience working with these libraries. Even simple things like improving error messaging can reduce the time a developer spends troubleshooting their code. Some recent enhancements to the Python library include adding error messaging to pivots and working with timestamps in pandas. We're working hard to improve the experience of shaping the data coming from InfluxDB. We're focusing our efforts into best practices on how to use the libraries from InfluxDB with well-known libraries like pandas. And finally, what's been up with the open source data collection agent, Telegraph? Telegraph had its first commit on March 2015 by our founder, Paul, and 7 years later, it continues to be the go-to reliable data collection agent for many of our users. Earlier this year, Telegraph hit its 1,000th contributor, and it was a huge milestone for our open source community. All of these numbers here don't just show that the number of people are using Telegraph, but it shows all the developers writing new features and bug fixes and contributing them back to the project. Over the last year, the Telegraph team has been working a lot on improving our triage and review processes to help streamline contributions and make it easier for you to contribute to the project. We've released a bunch of exciting new features in Telegraph to improve its usability and performance. We implemented new features across the agent, including scheduling your collection and faster line protocol parsing. We've also made major enhancements to some of our popular plugins. In the MQTT Consumer plugin, you can directly parse out tags from MQTT topics. And on the networking side, SNMP plugins will now parse MIB files directly for improved performance of the plugin. Telegraph still contains a bunch of tools to bring your processing to the edge. Don't underestimate the power of its processors and aggregators. With plugins like Starlark that do complex math and logic calculations, you can bring a lot of your computing power to the edge. You can also imagine with all the new plugins and new features, the Telegraph binary has grown significantly. This graph shows the binary growth on a Linux AMD 64 build. There are some large jumps in the binary when we integrated the AWS EC2 processor and the Alibaba Cloud plugin. Our focus in the next stages of Telegraph will be how we want to enable users with the tools to not be impacted by these large growth increases. And lastly, maintaining an open source project cannot be done without community members like you. There's some special members of our community I would like to acknowledge. For almost 2 years, we've had a select group of Telegraph community members join the Influx team as Telegraph maintainers. You might have seen these people in GitHub or answering questions in Slack. This group consists of passionate Telegraph developers and users in the community that provide expert knowledge on plugins and are our first line of communication when we want feedback from the community. Getting involved with open source projects isn't just writing code. If you're interested in sharing your story or answering questions in Slack, there's endless number of ways that you can get involved. We work really closely with corporations like Microsoft and AWS. We work closely directly with the SQL Server team on the SQL Server input plugin. And it's hard for the Telegraph maintainers to be SMEs in all these different types of technologies that Telegraph covers. So we rely and appreciate these companies being involved with Telegraph and being part of our community. So massive thank you to everyone out there, especially Thomas, Pavel, and Giovanni for helping us out. Now let's discuss where Telegraph is going. Our focus for Telegraph users right now covers some things. We want to empower users to create customized telegraphs, including reducing the Telegraph binary size. We also want to make sure that the user experience of Telegraph is logical and consistent. And lastly, you'll be hearing a lot about the future of InfluxDB during InfluxDays and all the new use cases that the database can handle. Telegraph will align with all of these, opening up the funnel of types of data that users will be able to ingest. Let's quickly refer back to this binary size chart. Here we can see the binary of Telegraph has almost doubled in the last 10 minor releases. This became a problem recently when Jay and I were working with a company called Panacore that wanted to download Telegraph onto their robot vacuums. Because these vacuums were so small, they wanted a footprint of Telegraph in the low teens. And if you can see here that there's no way that any of these versions would be able to fit onto these vacuums. It was possible before to build your own binary, but it required a lot of knowledge of working with the source code and developer tooling. That's not easy and actually just really time-consuming. We recently created a Telegraph custom builder that improves this time to awesome by creating a custom Telegraph with smaller disk and memory footprint with just a couple of commands. This custom builder will allow users to not just minimize their builds, but create customized telegraphs. One of our customers, Noble9, has actually been doing this for a while with their own Noble9 agent on top of Telegraph to utilize all the benefits of Telegraph, but to output their data to unique destinations. We want to empower more of our users to build these custom agents without the headache to retrieve just the plugins you want and any additional enhancements. Security is always a constant focus at InfluxData. We've had a lot of users, many of them SRE engineers from major corporations, that have strict security policies that have requested a better way for Telegraph to store secrets. The new security feature we're working on gives these users the ability to hide passwords and secrets in your Telegraph configuration through secret stores. To use the secret store, you will simply just add a secret store section to your Telegraph config. Your sequence and passwords can be managed by a JavaScript-based secret store or your native operating system keyring, like the Credential Manager control panel for Windows. The new secret store will improve security best practices in Telegraph and hopefully will address any security concerns that you or your company might have. In an effort to meet developers where they are, we'll improve the CLI experience for Telegraph users. The current CLI options and flags have naturally grown over the last 6 to 7 years as the capabilities of Telegraph have also grown. We are aiming to rewrite the commands in an effort to make the user experience more seamless, but also to give us the opportunity to add more agent-wide features through command line flags. All the command changes will be backwards compatible in the next major release, but we are currently planning on breaking them in a Telegraph 3.0. Staying true to who we are, we continue to release highly requested new plugins and features. Some of the plugins included in the 1.24 release are the long-awaited Postgres output and CSV data output format. As for plugin development in progress, we are working on adding event support to the OPC-UA plugin. This is valuable because events are a key data type in OPC-UA networks. We want Telegraph to be the go-to data collection for writing to any destination. There's a lot of joy I get when I see Telegraph mentioned in AWS, VMware, Cisco, and our other partner and competitors' documentation. I'm really proud of our engineering team who has built this premier data collection solution that even our competitors recommend to their users. With 7 years of a project that has moved over a bunch of different hands, you can imagine some of the Telegraph configurations have gotten pretty messy. We were planning on finally having a new major release in the first half of 2023, where we'll be removing already deprecated plugins and settings. If you're worried or unsure that you're using deprecated plugins, make sure you've upgraded to Telegraph 1.23 or later, where we've implemented deprecation warnings if you're using these plugins. If your organization won't allow you to upgrade, all the plugins that have been deprecated are noted in our documentation. Current versions are still going to be supported, but we just want to make sure we're providing you ample time to upgrade to a newer version of a plugin if needed. After that release, we'll also be changing the cadence of our release schedule. We're updating the Telegraph build and release process from a bunch of manual steps that took almost a day to an automated process that takes only a couple hours. The efficiency will allow us to do feature releases every month as opposed to once a quarter. And maintenance releases will only be included if something needs to be done urgently before the monthly releases. Otherwise, all bug fixes will be included in the monthly releases. We're working really hard on all these changes. Data collection is the first step and often hardest step when using a database. Making data collection easy is our goal at InfluxData, so you can spend more time querying and visualizing your data to get insight and information on how to take action on your data. If you want to give us some feedback on what you're seeing, our engineers, DevRels, and other community members live in these forums and are there to help you out. To learn more about data collectors at InfluxDB, check out the InfluxData website, GitHub pages, Slack and community forums, and of course, InfluxDB University. Thanks for joining my talk and enjoy InfluxDays.